Peace, love, and light, everyone. I hope all is well. This is your girl, Serena, and welcome. Welcome to another edition of Poetry, Publishing, and Literary Artistry. So, today's segment, we are going to focus on what is narrative poetry. And I'm so sorry, where are my manners? For those who don't know who I am, my name is Serena Wills. I am a poet, a self published author. I am also a publishing coach. I have four poetry books now and counting, and I'm also published in several anthologies. I'm also a health and wellness writer and blogger for various blogs and magazines that are published nationally. And what I love doing is, as I said, teaching about publishing and poetry. And I teach about different forms of poetry in the classes that I have. So in today's segment, we are going to focus on what is narrative poetry? What is it? For those who are not aware, there are over 50 forms of poetry and counting. 50. There's a whole lot, right? And narrative poetry is one of those forms of poetry. So it is a form of poetry that tells a story. So we might have some characters in there, narrator, the person reading the poem will almost feel like they're inside the poem. The entire story is usually written in what is considered metered verse, rhythmic or line verses. Narrative poems do not need to rhyme. Okay, rhyming poetry is a form of poetry in itself. The poems that make up this form may be short or long. Typically, a narrative poem is a bit longer than the average poem, and the story it relates to may even be complex. It is normally dramatic with various characters, and this is according to Wikipedia. So, with a little bit of me in there, right? So, I am going to share an example and a little bit more of what is narrative poetry. When I teach my poetry classes, I love to kick off with different poets that I've grown to love, those that I would love for people to be more aware of, and some who never heard of them. I actually work with a local high school with the poetry club and introduce them to these poets. And I told them I really was encouraging them to look up Amanda Gorman. So we're gonna start in the lower left corner. Who is Amanda Gorman? For those who don't know, she is the first youth poet laureate, national youth poet laureate in the United States. So she just made history. She broke ceilings. She's the first. She actually read a beautiful poem at the inauguration of former President Biden and VP Kamala Harris called The Hill We Climb. And she writes children's books. She is really a voice of the generation. So definitely check out Amanda Gorman. Who is Juan Felipe Herrera? So he is the 21st United States Poet Laureate. And I may have to come back and do a segment on who is a poet laureate, how can I be a poet laureate? Where are they? Different states have poet laureates, different cities. The area where I live at, we have a poet laureate here. So yeah, he was the 21st. He's also an author, a cartoonist, an activist. Then we have Jill Scott. Who is Jill Scott? Oh yeah. She is, for a lot of people know her as the incomparable singer, writer. Her just vocals, like the just when you're in a room listening to her online, wherever you are, it's just her voice goes. It just fills beyond the room, surpasses the walls. What some people don't know about Jill Scott is that she started off as a poet, and she actually has it in one of her live recordings that she started as a poet. She will die as a poet. She's always a poet. And a lot of her songs were birthed from her poems. How about that? Then we have the last poets. Who are the last poets? They were founded on May 19th, 1968. For those who don't know what May 19th is, that is the birth date of the great late Malcolm X. They were founded in what is now known as Marcus Garvey Park in East Harlem, New York. They are activists. They are unapologetic about what they say. They stand up for what are our rights. And still to this day, you can Google the last poets. They are still performing different venues and whatnot. So I remember my mom telling me how she once saw the last poets in New York. She saw them and Nikki Giovanni and Sonia Sanchez. I just, and she was just going on and on and on. So let's go into more of what is narrative poetry, but just wanted to introduce y'all to some poets for those who may not know who they are, or you're like, oh, okay, I didn't know about Jill Scott writing poetry, or, and hopefully y'all will look them up and find out more about them and support them. So, various ways you can write narrative poetry. There's all kinds of ways. The one form I love to write narrative poetry in is free verse. I just like to write the story. I don't want to worry about if it's rhyming or things of that nature. I just want to be free. Some of it might rhyme, so you might see some rhymed poetry in there. There's metered verses. A flow is rhythmic, so that's what metered verses means. Some poets and more so spoken word artists, when they perform their poetry, there's a flow that it has. There's a rhythm. You can almost feel the waves, okay, of their flow. Some is metaphoric. Some narrative poetry, when it's telling a story, might use metaphors, and you can use real people as characters or fictitious. So I'm not going to leave y'all there. Let's dive into an example of a narrative poem. So this is from my book. It's called Survivor. Actually, well, the poem is called Survivor. My book is called Crying Tears of Teal. And Crying Tears of Teal is my second poetry book that I birthed. I think I read this poem before, but I'm breaking it down now as a narrative poem, telling y'all what it is and how to look for narrative poetry. Crying Tears of Teal is my book that raises awareness and is dedicated to those who have or had ovarian cancer, their caregivers, their loved ones, family. It's also dedicated to survivors, those who are also grieving. My mother had ovarian cancer. She was diagnosed August 2009 at stage 4 and passed away 6 months later after diagnosis. And at her bedside, I wrote a ton of poetry, a ton. And didn't know, well, I promised her because she said, please promise me that you will turn these poems into a book and it can help other people. It's helped me. I know you can help people with your poetry. And several years later, I birthed Crying Tears of Teal that September 2017. And September is the month of National Ovarian Cancer Awareness. So this is a narrative poem. And I'm going to point out as I read it to you, I'm going to point out what makes it narrative. So cancer is no longer alive in my blood, organs, and whole body. So this is my mother. Well, I was hoping this would be my mother. I remember writing this before she passed, and I remember meeting various survivors along the way who really are living life to 155%. That's a poem I wrote too, is titled that. So in this case, in the poem, my mother is the narrator. She's telling the story. And there might be some quotes in here as well. So cancer is no longer alive in my blood, organs, and whole body. Now I'm not going to lie. All the while I was sick, with this wretched illness. I knew I would survive. So in this first part, she is talking to you. If you were watching a show, she's talking to the audience. Yeah, I was scared. At times I dreamt of my deathbed. But when I awoke, I knew I was given another day. One more chance to get better as I lay in a hospital bed. Now, you might hear a little rhyming. Like I was saying, you can use free verse, you can use rhyming. So, another day, and then as I lay. So, there might be some just sprinkling of rhyming in a hospital bed. I was even told hospice might be my only bet. I didn't believe those lies, and instead I fought on and I survived. I survived. So if I was performing this poem, see, I'm going to kind of dive in and out throughout this poem. If I was performing this poem when I have on a mic, this is one where you see the explanation points. I wouldn't be as level as I am now. I'm going to raise the bar. Um, so because you want the audience to hear, I survived. And it's twice. Chemo treatments, blood transfusions, surgeries, organs removed, half my weight gone, and hair is a total loss. Kept telling myself this is temporary. I dare not go insane. All that I've lost, I will regain. So there's going to be moments in narrative poetry where the person might even be talking to themselves, and that's okay, right? Because you're it's telling the story. So I fought. Even when the doctors thought I was going to die, one day at a time, I was revived. Rehab was my friend. I was once strapped to my bed in diapers and such. Step by step, I learned to walk again, finally able to walk to the bathroom, a place I hadn't seen in months. Inch by inch, I fed myself more. Sun was shining the day when my doctor laid his hand on top of mine and said, your cancer is gone. So that area is highlighted. There's a quote. So she is now bringing in, she's introducing the doctor into the story. So we brought the doctor in, physically showing you that the doctor laid his hand on top of hers and said, your cancer is gone. Tears poured out of my eyes as I declared, I told you I would survive. So with that, it's a little bit of an attitude, right? Because she's been telling these doctors, I'm not going anywhere. Okay, so that's that. So she's now talking to the doctor. 5 years later, I'm still free. I have what you call maintenance and still must do some physical therapy. I believed, I prayed, I told myself affirmations and surrounded myself with those who had faith. I told everyone then, and I will tell you the same. Mark my words, everyone. I will survive. Now, those last two lines where they're capitalized, if this was like a maybe a poetry slam or something, this might be a mic drop. So I will survive. Drop the mic and walk off the stage. This is a dramatic poem. You're really feeling um, you're feeling the emotions. You are feeling what they are going through. And you could feel the emotions. You could feel both when they told you how they felt in the past, how they feel now, and even in the present. And then 5 years later, so they took you to where they are now. So this is part one. I'm going to come back and do another part for those who watch these segments. Know that I love doing parts, right? So I'll come back for a part two, share another narrative poem. And the next one I'm going to share is more of a complex poem. Yeah. And it's longer. So I want to just start y'all off with a smaller one. So that's Survivor from Crying Tears of Teal. All right. So I hope you learned a lot about narrative poetry. Come on back for another part. Again, you were telling a story. You have characters, you have a narrator, you can have just one character. They are setting the stage, so you can feel yourself in this case, you could feel yourself in the room. You know, you could feel yourself maybe just talking with her outside 5 years later. And yeah, that is narrative poetry. Shout out to the artist who did my book cover, David Rodriguez. Please look him up, Dr. Gorilla. Yeah, drgorilla.com. He's across social media outlets. He actually, this was a artwork that I had seen before I even wrote the book, before my mother was even sick. And I told him I really would love this. And what he did was he added a teal tear, and you see a hint. There's hints of teal. Um, but wonderful and beautiful artist and a wonderful friend. So that is my time for today. If you would like to learn more about me, you could check me out across social media platforms. Divine Right, DIVINEWRYTE. That is my poet and spoken word and stage name. It's also the name of my health and wellness coaching practice, Divine Right Wellness. You can check me out on my website, serenawills.com, SERENAWILLS. Wills, not Willis, okay? serenawills.com. I hope to see y'all, later on. Come on back for more segments to learn more about poetry and some self-publishing and literary artistry. Many blessings to all. Take good care and one love. Bye for now.
Earth, 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 earth.